So as of early this morning, all of the essays have been graded. If you have not done the essay, it's late. I hope IS50B still has enough people to stay afloat this year. Yeah, there's like 8 people in IS50B right now, and so I think one.
Eight?
Yeah, only 8, but the class shares attendance with 50A, so it's not like the class is going to get canceled, especially at this point. So let's talk about your essays. So what I was really looking for in the essays was you identifying what makes a game special, right? And also what changes you'd make to a game, because that's trying to get you guys to think about game design, like what could be done to make this game better. And a lot of people left off that part, right? Like some people are like, making instructions better, which is fair. Like that's a fair criticism. But what I was really looking for is like from a game mechanic perspective, like what would improve the mechanics of the play. A lot of the people in the Munchkin group were talking about sort of how the game can be unfair. Like you can just keep drawing these really hard monsters and just never be able to kill anything. Dahlin talked about how bland your characters are at the beginning. Like you don't have a race or a class. You're just this featureless blob, I think she said. And so starting with a class and a race, as well as a gender, might be actually a good improvement. Other people talked about the pity rule for Munchkin, where like some people just get stuck at level 1 and it's just not very fun, right? And so having some sort of like maybe have the big monsters actually help you if you lose to them, if you're level 1 or something like that, where the dragon's like, oh man, sorry bro, you're terrible. Here, have a sword or something. Like I don't know, something like that might make the game a little more balanced. I don't know. Maybe not balanced, more fun. Okay, so the Munchkin also suffers this problem where like when one person starts like the game can just devolve into this infinite game of like everybody's stuck, and everyone's just opposing each other. And so that's kind of my biggest issue with Munchkin. And but I don't play it anymore after hosing my wife. She refused to play it anymore. Some of the other people, the essays were a little bit more disappointing. One person said what makes this game special is that after everybody takes their turn, it's the next turn. And I was like, yeah, that's how it works usually. Once everybody is gone, yes, then everybody gets to go again. That's that's pretty much how it be, like.
You know how long one turn would be if 100 people were playing at once?
Yeah, what would be different is if one person just plays the game and everyone else watches, And then, all right, it's your turn, you play the game and everyone else watches. It'd be different. It'd be terrible, but it'd be different at least.
That's like Founders of Gloomhaven.
Founders of Gloomhaven, it doesn't take that long, girl, come on.
No, I mean like how like if like all the turns is like in one turn, so you don't have to just watch.
All the turns are in one turn. Yeah. Yeah, so in Founders of Gloomhaven, one of the things that makes it very interesting, it's a board game, which is if you take an action to like, let's say recruit somebody, then everybody else gets to recruit somebody after you.
Or they get to do a simple action.
Or they get to take a simple action also. Thank you, Ada, for clarifying that. That is absolutely true. So if you recruit a person into your team, then everybody else at the table gets to recruit somebody potentially as well. But you get first pick. There's a field of 4 people you can recruit from, and so if you recruit one, then they get second pick, third pick, fourth pick, and so there's still a benefit to you choosing that option. And if you build a building, then everybody else can build a building, but they have more restrictions on it, right? They can only build on certain squares or things like that. So people die if they are killed.
Nelson.
Nice. Nelson Mandela. Yeah. Do you guys know what the Mandela effect is?
What's Mandela?
Yes. Yeah. Maybe. Anyway, so and so that would be something that would make the it's when you remember something that didn't exist, right? Like I think it was a lot of people were convinced Nelson Mandela had died or something like that.
Nelson really la.
Shh, girl, teaching. So in Founders of Gloomhaven, that would be an interesting mechanic. It's not entirely unique. Board games like Puerto Rico have a similar lead and follow mechanic where if I ship But here's the thing: in Puerto Rico, if I ship my goods off to the New World or from the New World to the Old World, then everybody else must ship, right? They're not given an option. In Founders of Gloomhaven, if I build a building, you don't have to build a building. You can take what's called a basic action instead. You can take $1, for example. Puerto Rico, a lot of the strategy of Puerto Rico is hosing your friends. Like if there's no ships available, or if there's like one ship available, you ship, you put your stuff on the one ship, and then everybody else has to dump all of their cargo into the ocean. Because if you ship and there's no ships available, all of the stuff from your warehouses gets poured right into the sea, apparently, unless you've built certain buildings that allow you to retain things. And so that's like the core interesting mechanic of the board game Puerto Rico. Founders of Gloomhaven has its own take on it, where it's much more friendly. If I take a build action, you don't have to build. You could take a simple action instead, to take $1 or build a road or something like that. So, one of the people who thought Elvis was still alive.
I think he's dead.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's dead by now. He'd be like 900 million years old. Okay, so what else about your essays? Yeah, my biggest criticism of some of them, and I was very generous in the grading. I don't think I really penalized people for this. Was it just the thing that makes the game special? That's what I was really looking for. Is like, why would somebody choose to play this game? And things like, it has victory points. No, it's there's a point. There's points in this game. Like, yeah, games have points. Like if I was at the Crazy Squirrel board game store and somebody said you should play this game, it's got points in it. It's like, you're not selling this to me, dude. So when you go to a board game store, you ask, you're like, why should I buy this game? Like usually the board game employees can be like, all right, what's fun about this game is, and they'll tell you, you get to build a civilization up through the ages, improving your military and things like that. But over time, things become more antiquated, and you have to upgrade them. But you have to balance upgrading your current stuff with acquiring new stuff, and and they could probably summarize through the ages for you, like pretty well, in a couple sentences. And if you're interested, they can tell you more about it and things like that. All right, well, what's the difference between that and this game, which has a similar concept? Well, this one's much more hardcore. If you make any mistake, you will be penalized for it for the rest of the game. So if you're into that kind of thing, play this game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of like in Zelda Link's Awakening. There's a puzzle that like shows you directions, and you have to look at it to make sure it's exact. Otherwise, they'll say start from the beginning, and then you have to go from the beginning, and then make your loop. Sometimes you even go to the same times twice. There's like a bunch of things everywhere.
Yeah, so what I was talking about there was a board game called Nations that I own. And I own the expansion for it as well. So let me pull up this. And so you get to recruit people and build buildings and things like that. And so like this adds 5 to your military, and this reduces your costs.
I don't think that's a different game besides Founders of Gloomhaven.
That is not Founders of Gloomhaven. This is called Nations.
It sounds like it.
And so anyhow, so in this game, you get production buildings that also have costs, and so if you don't balance everything right, like you end up getting completely stuck and hosed. But it's a very abstract game, right? Like, so we were talking about the abstract and simulationist thing, and what was interesting is that the people for Munchkin, like some people thought Munchkin was very abstract, and some thought it was very simulationist, which was kind of an interesting take. And some people thought it was a dexterity-based game, so I almost gave them a 0 on that, because there's no dexterity in Munchkin, right? There's no slapping the cards before other people play it. There's no flicking cards. You don't do anything with your manual dexterity. Munchkin's entirely you think and you play a card, right? What makes the game fun? Do you mean gameplay mechanics, or it could be music or art style? All of the above. All of the above. But like I said, I've cited Raph Koster's Theory of Fun a few times. It's a good book. I've got it around here somewhere. It's like a comic book almost, and it talks about what makes games fun. It's a topic
What makes games fun? Number 1, you get to do things. Number 2, you get to design your own life. Number 3, you get to do stuff. Number 4, it's virtual.
Did you drop a crayon?
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So, anyhow, so this is an abstract game. You're building a country, And you just have some cards in front of you, and that represents your army, and that represents your law production. And so when you go to war with somebody, you just compare your army score, somebody else's army score. You know, this is the military track, and it just shows you how relatively strong every country is on military. It's very abstract. This is how stable your country is. It's super abstract, and there's just cards you can purchase to off the center tiles here, and you can add them to your country. It's a very abstract Euro-style game, and it's not especially fun. Partly it's because I'm kind of biased against Euro-style games, and I don't really like abstract games either, where there, you know, you just sort of, you know, there's Parliament and it adds stability, you know. Through the Ages is kind of the better version of Nations. Very similar game. And I'm not super hyped on Through the Ages either. But you can see that I gave it a 9. You know, I do have issues with it, though. Vlaada Chvátil, he's the guy that did Mage Knight and Codenames and some other things. He's a pretty famous game designer, and it's also pretty abstract. Same general thing as, you know, Nations. You get cards, you add them to your country, and you've got better military, or you've got better there you go, engineering genius, breakthrough, theology, and so you use ideas to purchase new technologies, and it looks very similar to Nations, right? But why do people like Through the Ages better than Nations? It's a very interesting question. They're very similar games. Like, you can add despotism to your country. Look, you know, it doesn't even have the little tableau. It doesn't have that little board that you put things on. You know, so it's even more abstract than Nations. You get military, and
you can do more things.
You can do more things a little bit. That is true. There's a little bit more you can do in Through the Ages, but it doesn't have the same punitive aspect to it that Nations has. In Nations, you can literally hose yourself. In Through the Ages, it's a little bit more forgiving. It has the same problem, like when you start doing things like unrest starts happening and you start having to pay upkeep and stuff like that. But the overall impression of it is that Nations is just a very punishing game. Like, you have to, if you make any missteps in the game, you're going to be host for the rest of the game. Through the Ages, you can recover a little bit easier from being behind. And players can also form alliances with each other. Like, if you're in third and fourth place, the third and fourth place players will play like research partnerships and things like that, where if they ever attack each other, the alliance goes away. But if they don't attack each other, then they generate idea points every turn. And so there's these mechanisms for catch up and things like that. So two games that are very similar. They look very similar. They just have these abstract. What's your military score? 10. You know, you don't have dudes on a map fighting each other. You're not rolling dice. It's just like, you know, I will spend 5 military points to, you know, capture this island or something. But one game turns out to just be more fun than the other because their mechanics, for me, is better. It's I don't like it. Like, there's another game called Agricola, where you're raising a farm, and it's a very punishing game also. You're constantly worrying about winter and starving to death, and so you're trying to make babies, you know, and so in order to make babies, you have to have housing for them, and then you have to have food for them, and so there's this whole series of, because babies are great, they can do work for you when they grow up. And so you start off with a husband and wife. They have 2 actions when you make a baby. When the baby grows up, it can take a 3rd action. So you take 50% more actions. It's a huge step if you make a baby. And if you have 2 kids, that's 4 actions a turn you get. It's incredible. It's incredible. Kids are awesome. They do work for you. Mop the floor.
That's not the only reason.
But if you don't have food, then your kids starve, right? And it's a very depressing game. And there's all these different factors that figure in. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to take the bread making action. Nope, somebody else took it first. And so in Agricola, there's a limited number of actions you can take, and people put their workers on it and take those actions, and then you can't do it. It's like, okay, cool, now my kids are starving to death. Thank you. And it's a very good game, but it's not the kind of game I like to play because I don't want to think about my kids starving to death. You know what I mean? So, what else? What else about making games special? The Animal Crossing game, a lot of people like just how it was fully cooperative. That's fair.
It was not all cooperative.
No, they're playing the Animal Crossing board game, which we might play sometime, girl. You might like it. And they liked how it's family friendly, and that's cool. That's not really a unique mechanic though. Or rolling dice to get a certain number of actions and a certain number of moves. That's to me, it makes the game very luck based. If you're rolling a d8, like that's a huge swing between moving 1 square and moving 8 squares. So to me, it's a pretty luck based game. But I don't really know. I don't really know what makes it unique. Maybe just the notion of like trying to improve an island or something. I don't know. Some people talked about putting the ladder on the map as a unique mechanic. I can kind of get that, where you can like modify the terrain. Yeah, it's kind of like that. But overall, this sort of thoughtfulness is what I'm trying to encourage you guys. Why did I like Through the Ages, and why did I not like Nations? They're very similar games. Why did I just like one more than the other? And you have to sit there and think about it.
Wow. Nelson Mandela died the year after I was born.
You died the year after you were born. Yeah, he didn't die like 10 years ago. Okay, so...
Wow.
So, yeah. So what you guys are going to do now is, in your groups, you are going to design a board game. Okay? This is going to be your first project, and we're going to get into Unreal Engine right now also. So if you guys want to start firing up Unreal Engine. But basically, what you're going to do, what's due next Tuesday, is you guys are going to have to design a board game. You're not going to have to make it by next Tuesday. You're going to have to design a board game. Come up with a interesting board game. The 4 of you in a group are going to have to work together. If you don't like your group, message me and I can redo the groups. I do think in general it's good for people who are awake at the same time and to be in groups together. And so what you're going to have to do is come up with a 1 or 2 page document and just basically describe. It's launching Epic Games Launcher. You're going to have to describe a board game that you would like to make. And so don't make it too gigantic. Don't make it, like Skyrim. Twilight Imperium or Skyrim or something like that. Make it.
Skyrim sounds easy enough because they're all just mini stuff. So.
Skyrim the board game? I don't know. I mean.
No, I was talking about like video game. I thought you were doing.
No, we're not. Yeah, well, we're about to do video games, but that's what you're gonna do, and I'll post the things on that on Canvas. Basically, meet in your group, and I want you. The key thing here, the thing that I'm looking for, and the thing I will mark you down on. For the last stuff, I've been very I've been basically handing out 100% to everybody because
it's too hard.
Because it's too hard. No, not because it's too hard. 1 page essay is not too hard. On playing a board game and talking about what makes it fun is not a hard assignment. I'm sorry.
I thought talking about that thing where it was so hard. Like only a few people did it, but they didn't do it perfect. But you get 100% because it was way too hard.
Oh yeah, I've done that in the past, but not for this. Really? Basically, if you do the assignment, you're getting a 10. But for the board game design, I want you guys to think of something that is interesting. I want you to come up with an interesting mechanic for a board game. It could be anything. But that's what you guys are gonna have to come up with. So, I don't know. It's challenging, trying to think of some mechanic that. And you can lean on other games for inspiration. Like you'd be like, all right, the core principle is Munchkin, but we're gonna have. In previous years, they did like Munchkin with an inventory system. So you have different slots for helmet and chest and weapons. And when you fight people, there's like a store, and so you fight people, you get gold, and you buy things off the store. And so people are competing to get the better items from the store, and the store refreshes. And so. And so that's an interesting mechanic, right? So there's Munchkin where you have more agency over what items you get, and you're competing over them, right? So if you might want to fight a harder monster to get more gold so that you can steal that magic weapon prior to another person getting it. So that would be an example of, and it's not fully original. It's Munchkin Plus, but it's got a bidding mechanic kind of, or a common pool mechanic for pulling better items from. So if you wait too long to fight monsters, you conserve your strength to fight monsters, then you end up with just like 5 different worn boots, in the store or something. Right? Okay, you guys with me on this? So, Solar Quest is like Monopoly, but you buy the moons and planets. Just be aware that I find Monopoly to be a very, very very boring game.
Long game too.
Even when you play Monopoly properly, it's still a very extremely excruciating and boring game that is basically
Why is it boring?
Because you just roll a die and look, here's $50. You roll a die, here's $20. Roll a die, I collect $200.
So there's no real strategy of life. There's not much strategy besides the buying and the selling.
The only strategy in Monopoly is if you land on a space, do you buy it or sell it? And if you don't buy it, then it goes up for auction and other people can buy it. And that is literally the only, and improving your provinces, improving your squares. How much should I invest into houses versus keeping liquid in case I land on somebody else? That's really the only strategy in Monopoly, and it's not enough for me. It's too boring. So, but if you want to, use that as your starting point, then yeah. So like Monopoly with the ability to like travel around and buy moons, yeah, that's interesting. Where you can choose different directions to go in, or something. I don't know. Could be fun. So don't let me pour cold water on your idea, Mr. Span. It's just the core mechanic of Monopoly. In most family games have really bad mechanics. Sorry, you just travel around a loop. You travel around a loop, and if you land on somebody, you say sorry, and they slide backwards.
I'm sorry.
There's no...
Actually, in the game I play with Camille, there's actually a card you have to get to say sorry.
And then Parcheesi, if you put 2 people on the... Parcheesi is a little more strategic. You can put 2 people in block, and things like that. Chutes and Ladders is completely random.
It's probably one of the worst games ever.
It's literally the worst game ever made.
It's random, like Bingo.
It's worse than Anthem. Let's put it that way.
And it's worse than Bingo because you just go.
Yeah, Bingo's a terrible game.
Because it's just like there's a bunch of dice and like it's just randoms. It's like.
Old Maid, Crazy Eights. This is okay. But basically a lot of these family games are just really. And a lot of people don't like board games just because those are the games they played in the past, and they don't know that board games can actually be really interesting. Yahtzee's got a little bit of strategy to it, and choosing like what dice you retain. I wouldn't particularly choose to play it ever. Millborn, it's a car racing game, completely random also. There's just a lot of really bad board games out there. Some of the better ones are Backgammon. Backgammon's a really interesting game. Backgammon looks completely random, but there's a lot of strategy that goes into Backgammon. Same thing with Cribbage. If somebody's good at Cribbage or Backgammon, unless they just get incredibly unlucky, they're going to win most of the time. They have an anime about Yahtzee. It's funny. Okay, so let's Backgammon. Yeah, Backgammon's interesting. It's actually a very for a game that looks like it's just a single track going this way and they go that way, and you roll dice and that's how far you move. There's a lot of strategy in Backgammon. So it's an underrated game. So I think Monopoly's overrated. I think Backgammon's underrated. Okay, so show of hands, how many people have got Unreal Engine open? Staring at their snowman. Anyone? Got Unreal Engine open? Thumbs up. Did anyone get affected by the mono wins up in Oakhurst? Pellegrino just writes thumbs up. Okay. Have it open. Yeah, so there are big wins up in Bass Lake, and you're up. I'm up. Trees getting blown over. All right. Okay, Unreal Engine. Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, first thing we did was we made a little snowman, and what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys the basics of making something interactive in a video game. So, right now, if we hit play, you will see that our snowman just kind of sits there.
Actually, a ball movie.
Oh, I turned physics on just the lower part. That's funny. I didn't turn physics on the other two.
Is this spinning? Electric.
Yeah, you do.
Ah, what's with the camera?
It's not. I don't have inverted y-axis on. I'm one of those people. Up. There you go. Left. Up. There. Shoot it. There you go. Okay. So let's. All right. Do your. I need my computer. Here. Slide on. Okay. It is nice. You're so affectionate. But
Dad, can you turn physics on for the head, please?
Okay. We can take that. Yeah. Other direction.
I want to decapitate the snowman.
You want to decapitate the snowman? All right. I'm not going to turn it on the eyes though. Whee! Because the balls start off interpenetrating each other, and so the physics engine's like, nope, that's not allowed, and then it flings them in different directions. So watch.
But how come it does that?
Because the balls are inside of each other. So the way it works is if something's solid, it can't have anything inside of it. So the physics engine tries moving the ball in such a way that it is outside of anything else. And so this ball is inside of two balls, and so it'll probably vibrate quickly and explode. This happens in Oblivion as well. If you have a table, you put a plate on the table, you put a piece of beef on the plate, the plate will start vibrating like this because it's trying to like not be within either the steak or the table, and starts vibrating, and eventually it explodes and your forks and knives fly all over the place. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and turn these all off and just leave it as a snowman. There we go. Okay, so let's add interactivity to our world. So there's a couple ways that we can do things in a world. The two main ways are called touch and think. Okay, touch and think. So you can have something happen when you touch something, and you can have something happen when you can have the snowman think like once a second and be like, if there's anybody in front of me, say, do you want to build a snowman?
Do you want to decapitate it?
Do you want to decapitate a snowman? So today we're going to be talking about touching, okay? So when you go home, tell your students, your professor is telling you how to touch people. In a video game. Okay, so soft touch, hard touch, good touch, bad touch. Yeah. What Prado's referring to is I attended a staff development day a couple of years ago, and the counseling office was telling us how to soft touch students and when to call them in for a hard touch, and all the professors were sitting there in the audience like, I don't think we should be soft touching or hard touching our students. That sounds like a really bad idea.
During COVID.
Yeah, especially during COVID. This is before COVID. And so apparently soft touch means you send them an email like, hey, I noticed you haven't been in class in a while. Is everything okay? Is everything okay? That's a soft touch. And then hard touch is when you call them into office hours. But I was just like, that terminology is a little, I'd probably find different terminology for that one. I don't know. Okay, so Habron logs in to hear this, yeah. Okay, so we're going to do touching right now, Habron. So we're going to make it so that when you touch Frosty here, it will maybe sing something, maybe do something else. Okay, you guys with me on this? So let's there's a couple different ways we can do this. The easiest way is to do sphere trigger, or should we do touch first? So if we do touch, which one would we be touching? Because we might touch any of these first. So I'm gonna do a sphere trigger. Okay. So you guys all should see here there is a sphere trigger option on the left-hand side where it says sphere trigger. So go ahead and drag that out into the world and position it over the center of Frosty and then scale it up. So I'm going to scale this up into the area that it will activate. So that seems pretty good. So if we come within this, and it's invisible by the way, so this will not appear. This will not appear when you are playing the game. It'll be invisible. But the little yellow lines show you where the trigger is. Okay. And what we're gonna do, I'll pull this up a little bit, maybe. Yeah, it looks good. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that when the player walks over the sphere trigger, it will print. We're going to probably have it play, sound or something at some point. But usually when we're doing game development, we start off by just printing something just to make sure it works. So when somebody walks into this invisible region here, we're going to have it print to the screen, "Hi," or something like that. Okay. You guys ready for this? And then later on, you can make it play sounds. This kind of thing is used for doorways. You walk up to a doorway in a video game, the door opens, right? That's, maybe a box trigger. A box trigger is the same thing, but, cubical in nature, right? Are you guys ready for this? So with the sphere trigger selected, do you guys see on the right-hand side here where there is a you can't see it if you are on OBS. That's annoying. Right there, right below my face. Let's pull it down a little bit. Okay. Right here, there's a button, a blue button called Blueprint. Okay. And so with the sphere trigger selected, click on that blue button there. Let's see, I can probably drag this down a little. There we go. And click on Blueprint, Add Script, like that. And then you can give it a name. We will call this Frosty Talks. Okay. So we call this Frosty Talks.
Of course, Frosty Talks. Haven't you seen the movie?
All right. And so give me a thumbs up when you guys are looking at this kind of weird looking thing here. Okay. So drag out a sphere trigger, scale it so that it's expanded around Frosty, and then click on Blueprint and click Add Blueprint, and then name it whatever you want. I called mine Frosty Talks. You can't get it to scale. Make sure that you are not holding down the right mouse button. If you're holding down the right mouse button and you hit R to select the scaling tool, it won't do it. Okay. So let off the right mouse button. And then you can use W, E, and R. You see how it's changing right there on the screen. W for translate, E for rotate, R for scale. And tap R. And then go back, and in the center there's a white box. And just click and drag that, and you can make it bigger or smaller. Okay? How do you get to sphere trigger? On the left-hand side here, there is a palette. It's under basic. And if you scroll down under basic, at the very bottom, there is sphere trigger. And all you do is you just drag that out into the world. Drag it out into the world, move it over Frosty, scale it up, and then you will have a trigger. And there's other ways you can do this. Usually if you're doing this, you'd actually be adding the sphere trigger to Frosty. So as Frosty, let's say, moves around, it would the sphere trigger would move with it. But we're doing something super basic right now. Baby steps. What class do you use in the blueprint? Whatever the default is. Just type in a name of Frosty Talks and leave the rest as the default. Just hit done. Or whatever the green button is called. Okay, you guys with me? Pellegrino is typing. Can you change the scaling of the sphere trigger if you already made it too small? Yeah. You can just minimize this, and then you can come back in and change it. It's fine. And then just click back. Okay, so click up here. Do you guys see how there's a tab called Viewport? Viewport views your model, right? And so all we have in this model is the sphere trigger, which is an invisible sphere that when people walk over it, it's going to trigger something. Okay, that's why it's called a sphere trigger. It's a sphere-shaped trigger. Ignore construction script for now and click on Event Graph. Event Graph. And what we want is when somebody begins overlapping, when somebody walks within, when somebody penetrates the area of this sphere, the sphere trigger, we want it to print hi, hello world, something like that. So the most basic thing we do in game development is we just want to make sure that it works. Okay? So begin play and event tick are also interesting things. We're not going to do anything with them right now. But give me a show of hands when you guys are on the event graph tab. And again, this is a problem with doing it online. It's like in real life, I just walk around and just, oh no, you got to click here, that kind of thing. But online, it's up to you guys to tell me if you're here or not. Because like I'll just sit here and be like, I don't know, can't see. You could be sharing your screen right now, but none of you are. So I don't actually know if you're here or not. So you gotta tell me. Okay, so let's introduce this. This is a big concept. This is our big thing for the semester. The big thing for the semester is blueprints. So in IS50A, we do all of our coding with blueprints. Blueprints are drag and drop Tinker Toy programming. It's like Scratch, if you guys ever use Scratch or any other block programming language. It allows you to write programs for your game without actually having to open up a text editor and sit there and type, int pointer r equals new. Nope, no typing, right? I mean, there's going to be a little typing, like you named Frosty Talks or whatever, but there's no coding, right? You don't actually type text for a code. In IS50B, we do that. In IS50A, it's just Tinker Toy. It's drag and drop. What did you click? I'm still trying to find sphere trigger again. So again, if you want to pull out a sphere trigger, on the left-hand side here, there's the place actors palette. If it's not showing, you can always reload the layout by going to Window, Load Layout, Default Editor Layout, and that will reset your screen to normal because sometimes people will like close out a tab or something like that, and they're like, where'd the thing go, And there's, under here, there's different things you can choose that'll make this appear differently as well. So if you have like landscape showing over here, yeah, let's make sure it's on place actors. Okay. Span is sharing a screen. I don't see it. So. Okay. Can't find where you're at. You're in Blueprint. So you're in the Blueprint, and you're in Viewport. And so now you're going to want to click on Event Graph. Event Graph. And then that will be where you need to be right now. It's saying graph is not editable. Really? It's saying graph is not editable. Huh. So, yeah, share your screen, Stafford, and I'll take a look at it. So what I want you guys to do, the way that blueprints work, is that anytime you have a white, what is it? It's not exactly a diamond. It's like a triangle, diamond, pentagram kind of thing, pentagon. Is when you drag off of that, that is the flow of execution. So whatever box comes out of this here will get run when somebody begins overlapping the sphere trigger. So when somebody walks over the sphere trigger, it will call print string, and it's going to print hello. Okay. So, and if you wanted to do two things, like you wanted to print hello, and you also wanted to play a sound, then you can just drag off that, drag off that, drag off that, drag off that. And it's like connecting Tinker Toys together. You just can sit there and add more and more things you want it to do. So when you begin overlapping, you can have it print hello, and then have it play the explosion sound, and have it make a particle effect. And so you can, don't worry about that for now. And so you can have it do one thing, then another thing, then another thing, then another thing. You just keep attaching them, just like Legos, you just attach them all together. And they will run in order. It will first print the string, then it will play the sound, then it will do this, and when it comes to the end, that's it. It's done. Your screen is visible. Let's take a look. Watch stream. Okay, so double click on the blueprint. Stafford. If you might just be sharing your basic Unreal Engine window. If you're in the blueprint window, you're not sharing it. Basically, you would need to double click on. You need to double click on that blueprint there to get into it, if you're not in it right now. But I don't think you're sharing your screen. I think you're just sharing a window, maybe. When you choose to share your screen, share screen 2, or your screen, not a window, and then it'll show what's on your screen. Okay, on the screen we type Frosty Talks. What's the next step? Hit. Are you talking about making the trigger? Once again, you drag out a sphere trigger and click Add Script, and then you're gonna type Frosty Talks here, and then you hit the green button down here. Should be better. There we go. Alright, so try dragging out from one of those white pentagons, the one that says Actor Begin Overlap, the one in the middle. Not there, not there. Go to the right. Do you see that grayed out box there that says Actor Begin Overlap? Yeah, don't worry about the comment. Just look at the white pentagon in the middle of it and click and drag out from there. There you go. And when you drag out, now you're going to type print string. Just type print. It's an intelligent search thing. You click on it. Good. And then it will say hello. Cool. All right, you're where you need to be. Now, once we have our blueprint, you have to compile it. This is like source code. You have to compile it to work. So let me switch my screen back as well, so we're not watching you streaming, me streaming, you streaming. Okay. So we come back into here, and once you've got, don't worry about the sound for now. Once you've got it printing hello, then what you're gonna do is you're gonna hit compile, and if everything works good, it turns into a green checkbox. Your blueprints will not work until you compile them. Okay. Hit compile, hit save. Those two things go together all the time. Like you'll make a change, you'll hit compile, save, compile, save, compile, save. That's the workflow you're going to need to get into. You're going to modify your blueprint and hit compile, hit save. Okay? And then I'm just going to minimize the blueprint because I'm going to come back into it in a moment. And then I'm going to walk forward and see if it says hello. Look, right there, top left part of the screen. It just said hello for a second. The prints by default will show for like 2 seconds. So there you go, hello. So when I walk up to Frosty, Frosty says hello. This is our starting point for things. You always want to, like, I always just start with printing something. Like, I'm trying to figure out if a guard can see me, rather than doing all this AI stuff and attacking all this stuff. I start off by printing to the screen, I see you. just a little string, not something I'd put in any production code, but I just want it like, bloop, okay, there, it's working. One of the hardest things in Unreal Engine is like, you'll do this, you'll walk up, and nothing happens. And you're like, all right, I don't know what's going on here. Right? Because Unreal Engine is so big and so expansive, like, sometimes you don't have the settings set correctly. For example, where is Frosty Talks? So for example, if Frosty Talks, if you go through the details panel down here, there's collision presets down there. And right now it's set to be a trigger, which is what we want, but if you were to change that to like no collision, then it wouldn't print anything, because it wouldn't generate any events when you walk next to it. When you touch it, it wouldn't do anything. So by default, triggers are set to be triggers, which is good. It works the way you expect them to. But there's so many different options. You look at all these different checkboxes and things like that. And if one checkbox somewhere isn't set, then nothing happens. And so the first thing that you want to do is just print hi. Hello. How do you walk with a gun? So you hit play. So after you save it, compile, save, minimize, now you get to play your game. So do you see how there's a play button right there? Alt-P. So hit play. And walk forward. Hello. WASD is the default movement for the FPS thing. Hello. Now if I stay there, hello, it does not keep triggering. You see that? It only triggers when you enter it. When you enter the sphere, then it will print hello. After that, it's only on begin overlap. Could you have on end overlap? Yes, you could. You can have on end overlap. And if you want to have something happen every frame, that would be event tick. You might have to click to move in the play window. Yes, that's a good point. So escape gets you out of play mode, and when you hit play, you have to click here, and then it captures the mouse. Hello. All right. So let's come back in here. Do you guys have any trouble getting that working? Can't figure it out. Man, I hate COVID. So, yeah, you drag out from here, and then you type print string. Right-click will also just allow you to add a blueprint node, play sound, and then you can hook it up manually, like that if you want. Still trying to make the node. So are you here, Pellegrino? You're at event actor begin overlap. Left click and drag out of the white pentagon here, and then it'll pull up the search. You're just going to search for print. Okay. All right, and then so if you guys got that working, then try playing a sound. I don't even have those highlighted boxes. You don't even have those highlighted boxes. They start off grayed out. Grayed out means they don't do anything. You got to pull out from them in order to have them do something. So for example, if I pull out of event begin play and I type print, begin play runs once. Begin play runs when the game begins, basically, for something like this. So welcome to IS-50A. Okay. And so when the game runs, compile, save, minimize, play, you can see when the game runs, it says welcome to IS-50A. Okay. And that's the only time that'll run. So begin play only happens once at boot, kind of, you might think, when at launch. If you create a Frosty dynamically, then it'll happen then. Event begin overlap happens when you walk into the thing. They're gray like this. Yeah, you have to drag out from the white. You have to drag out from the white pentagon there. Ada, can you kill the alarm, please? And event tick happens every frame. So the three basic things it gives you. There's other things like you can add actor end overlap, which I'll do in a second. But event tick happens every frame of the game. And so if your game's running at 60 frames a second, it'll happen 60 times a second. If you're at 10 frames a second, it'll happen 10 times a second. So you have to be careful with event tick, and we'll talk probably more about that later. It's also not great from a performance standpoint. But like if I wanted to just say spam over and over again, I drag out from the white thing there, type print, and then I type spam in here. And then when I run it, you'll see a little print, welcome to IS-50A once briefly. Then it's going to spam on the screen. You see that? Spam, 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 spam. And when I walk up, you'll see hello flicker on there for a second. Nope. I don't know if you even saw that. It just flew past. Because every frame, Frosty is saying spam, 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 spam. Spammity spam, spammity spam. Okay. So, yeah, let me not do that. Kill. What actions did you pick? So I picked print string. And so when you drag out, it brings up an intelligent search menu kind of thing. It's actually quite good. It's context sensitive by default, which means it only shows you things that could go there. So for example, if you were to drag out from this pin only takes sounds. And so it will only show you options that would, like, for example, produce a sound for you, right? Kind of nice. Because if you just right-click normally, there's like 10 trillion million options, right? But if you're to drag out from something, then it will, with context sensitive on, which is on by default, it will show you the only things that could feed into it, which is really nice. Yeah. Sometimes, you'll see it this semester that it's not always that smart. But in general, it's going to be a nice way of filtering out all the different options. Which function has print string under it? It's just print string, dude. Literally just type print. It's under string, but if you drag out from this white line like this and you just type print. So this is a search box here. When you drag out and the window appears, you can just type. And so just type print. And it'll immediately take you to print string. And then you just click on that. Like that. If I deleted that, and you'll notice these things are not hooked up anymore. So I need to reestablish the connection here. And once you guys got print string going, make it play an explosion. So there's a little drop-down menu here. Make it play an explosion. If you right-click and drag on the blueprints menu, then you can move around inside of the blueprints. If you left-click and drag, it selects. So if you want to move things, you can select them and move them together, which is pretty common. One of the most annoying things about blueprints is that they get very spaghetti-y. So you end up having just blueprints everywhere, and so there's ways of managing that. And so drag out from here, choose play sound 2D. Spaghetti code is messy, yeah, and that's one of the reasons why people prefer writing text code. Right? It's organized a little bit better. But there's ways of organizing this. Like I could turn this into a macro, and then you can collapse boxes into other boxes. Control Z works, by the way, so if you ever break something, Control Z will undo it. You like blueprints? I do too. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just managing them can be, and sometimes it's just like this tree, and you're just like sitting there looking at like, yeah, okay, this goes here, and then that feeds into that, and I'm old school. I like reading text, but blueprints are fine. Yeah, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with blueprints. We're doing it all. This is like adding logic to the game. Yeah. And next week we're going to learn how to do more intelligent stuff. But yeah, we're making Frosty the Snowman interactive. And so I compiled it, saved it, and then if I go down to play now, it plays an explosion and prints. Yeah. So this is the most basic form of interaction, right? There's touch and think, and trace. The three T's are the three main ways, because video games are different from regular programs, right? Regular programs don't have explosions and AI hunting you down and stuff like that. In video games, it's almost a different way of programming, and so you need to get used to the three T's: touch, think, and trace. Okay, those are the three main ways you make your games interesting. You make them interactive and things like that. So touch is this. Think would be like that thing where I had it printing spam every frame. That's a very, very basic and annoying think function. Every frame. Spam, 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 spam. And then trace, we haven't seen yet, but imagine if I could shoot it like a laser beam, right? And see what's in front of my cursor. That'd be a trace. Okay. So that's the three ways that we interact with the world mainly. Okay. And yeah, with that you can make pretty much any video game you want. Okay. What you click, what button is underneath? Trace. What am I looking at? ID it. Trace. Well, touch it. Touch. Have it turn around like a sentry gun. Think. Right. Touch, think, and trace. Those are the three ways. So this is a very basic touch function. And this is an overlap. You can have both overlap, and you can have it be when it actually collides with something. So what we did here was an overlap. A collide is when it would actually, like when the ball bounces off a box. That's a different kind of touch called a collision. Event hit is what it's called. So we're basically out of time for today, and we'll do hit later. Oh, it's still running. Stop. So I'm just going to show you end overlap. So actor end overlap, and click here. And so you can add more events. There's more than just the three, right? There's all sorts of events. You can make your own events and keybinds and things like that. I'll story for a later time, but for now, like we can just make it so that when you walk away from Frosty, it'll just print. Type print. Choose print string. And just have it say bye. So you walk up to Frosty. Let's make it a more cheerful sound than explosion. Smoke. Birds. Sure. Let's have it play birds. You walk up to Frosty, it starts playing the sound of birds. And then when you walk away from Frosty, it'll print bye. Okay. And this is all you need to know for now. I'm not going to give you another Snowman assignment till Thursday. For now, I want you guys just meeting with your groups and talking about designing your board game. Try to come up with some interesting game mechanic, and that will be due next Tuesday. So the birds start playing. Frosty says hello. I walk away. Frosty says bye. Okay. Any questions? And that wasn't like a I'm ready to go, any questions kind of thing. It's quite serious. This is really important. If you don't get this now, the rest of the semester is going to be a train wreck because it's all going to be in blueprints. So, make sure you got the ability to do this. Okay. There's a video on YouTube that shows how to make a box chase you. Yeah, my daughter loves it when I do that. What? There's you remember the Terminator box? What Terminator? The Terminator box, the box that chases you around the level. Remember, I made a box that would like chase after you. Oh. Yeah. My daughter thought that was hilarious. Or you can make a shy box that runs away from you. What's the child class do in blueprints? I clicked that instead when I made my blueprints by accident. It depends what you childed it to, but basically a child class will inherit all of the blueprints from another blueprint, and then you can modify it. You can add things to it. So, for example, if you wanted this, you could create a child class of it that will print spam, 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 spam on the event tick. But you wouldn't have to redo. You wouldn't have to redo all of this stuff. It would just. All the stuff in here would be in the child class, and you can add stuff to it. So, it saves you from having to copy paste code. When you upload this to YouTube, I'll watch it over again and get the idea down. Cool. Time passed by really fast. I'm missing something. We'll watch this again once you post the lecture so I can get it right. I logged in late. I think you were here for the start of the thing. So you launch Unreal Engine, load up your spring 2021 level, and you're going to drag out a sphere trigger, or trigger sphere, it's sometimes called. You're going to drag out a trigger sphere. You're going to move it over Frosty, scale it over Frosty. That's the radius. That's the interaction radius, and that's really important. When you're making a video game, you really want your bounding, your interaction things to be feeling good, right? And then once you've kind of scaled it to the area that you want it to scale to, then you click on Blueprint Add Script. Type in whatever name you want there. Hit Select, and then when you come into the blueprint, let me go back and delete that other person over here. Delete you, so I don't have two of them. And then when you come into the blueprint, it'll start you off on this tab, the viewport tab, which is a viewing tab that shows you what your thing looks like. Right now it's just this trigger sphere, which is not very interesting. So you click on Event Graph, and then you drag out from these white pentagon kinds of things here. And what that means when you drag out from that is that when somebody begins overlapping the sphere, in other words, when somebody walks into that sphere area, call this code. And in fact, I can actually show you this happening. Let me go into split screen mode here. Zoom out a little bit, pan to the right, zoom in a little bit. You can actually play your game with the blueprint open at the same time. And so you can snap, if you hit Windows key left arrow, it'll snap to the left half. And normally I'd snap this to the whole right half, but my face is kind of blocking the upper half. So if you hit play, you'll see over here how it's got a golden rectangle around it. So that means you can actually watch the blueprint in real time. Watch. When I walk over it, begin overlap, you'll see like little laser beams coming out of it. See that? And then when I walk away, you'll see an actor end overlap activate. You can barely see it. Okay. Walk forward, walk away. And that's a really useful tool to just see if your code's getting called at all, right? Is again, the biggest problem in Unreal Engine is that you do something and then just nothing happens. And that will happen to you. And so having your blueprints open, I have two monitors here, and so what I typically have when I'm doing development is I have my blueprint on one screen and I have this on the other screen. I use print string liberally to just kind of see what's going on. And I have the blueprint. You can set a breakpoint. So if you really want to get into this kind of stuff, you can right click on it and choose add breakpoint. And then when you play the game, when that blueprint gets hit, when that blueprint gets hit, it stops the game. And then it takes you into the blueprint, and you can mouse over it. And in fact, if you mouse over, like, no, there's no variables here. But if you were to like mouse over a variable, it actually tell you what value it has. And so a lot of times, like, you want it to like figure out how far away the player is from the AI. You calculate that, and you can mouse over and be like, oh, it's calculating that wrong. It has a negative number for a distance. Distances shouldn't be negative, you know, and you can tweak it. And so you can do that by that little red dot there means there's a breakpoint. And so you can just add or remove a breakpoint by right-clicking on it and then choosing add breakpoint. I have it all as far as I can tell, but it won't say hello. I'll work on it though. I don't think I can go back to the sphere trigger. I only see the reflection we made. I don't know what you mean by reflection. Like, are you having trouble selecting the... Yeah, so if this guy... right, so there's a problem, right? Like, the sphere trigger is... You can't click on it, right? And so on the right-hand side of the screen here... That's a great question. Let's finish on that. So on the right-hand side of the screen here, there's this thing called the World Outliner. And there's a search box... there's a search box... Let me snap to the left side of the screen. There's a search box right here. And so that's why I named my thing Frosty Trigger. So you can search for it, and if you click on it, then it selects it. So if you ever lose, you know, your trigger, or you want to move it again, then just search for it up here, or you can scroll through the World Outliner, which I don't recommend, and you can find it that way if you want. So the world outliner is how you find things, and that's why it's important to name things interestingly. So if you I would name like wall 1, wall 2, floor, right? And so like if you want to select the floor, then floor, right? And you can zoom to it, go here, we'll move you to the floor. If you want to go to Frosty Talks, right click, go here, it'll make you look right at it, right? Let's see, if you want to look in front of wall 4, there you go, you're in front of wall 4. You understand? So you can use the world outliner to, I think if you double click, if you double click, it'll take you there as well. So you can double click on things in the world outliner, it'll zoom you there. That's really useful if you've got a really big world, and so you can organize your world outliner. You can make folders, and it's like if you've got a red flag and a blue flag and they're like 10 miles apart on the map, then you can just have like a flag folder. And you can hide these things too. Like if you turn off the visibility, then they vanish from the world. So if you need to see through the walls and just kind of see where everything is, you can just turn them all off, which is another reason why you put things into groups like that. But yeah, you just be like, take me to the red flag, double click. Okay, now take me to the blue flag, double click. And you can do that to just kind of hop around the world without using WASD. In a room like this, I just use WASD, but you can double click on Frosty Talks. Boom, there you go. Okay. Trigger kind of reminds me of when you play Mario Brothers, the brick looks at you and grits its teeth when you get near it. Cool. Alright, so Hayburn, just stream. We're done with class now. We're already 10 minutes over. So if you want to stream your video, I'll help you out after class. Okay? Thanks, you guys. We'll pick this up again on Thursday. Work with your groups. Think about a board game you want to make and come up with some clever, interesting mechanic. That's what you're going to get the A for. Okay? All right. And that proposal is due next Tuesday. All right, cool. Peace out, you guys. Peace out.